This episode contains discussions of racial violence and police brutality, specifically regarding the murder of Latasha Harlins, the beating of Rodney King, and the 1992 Los Angeles riots. Listen at your own discretion. It is Sunday, the 16th of March, 2025. My name is Pigeon Rose, and this is my song of the day. We're ending out the week with yet another sad song. This is just a week of sad songs, or at least emotional songs, but this one's definitely a sad one. It's also an angry one in a lot of ways. That song is called Empire Liquor Mart, 9127 South Figueroa Street by Gabriel Kahane. Now, Gabriel Kahane is it might be pronounced Kahane. I don't actually know how it's pronounced, but it's spelled Kahane. He's an American composer and singer-songwriter, and I believe I discovered this song. There was this thing Spotify did at the end of the year. You know, they make your top 50 songs of the year or whatever. One year they did a thing called Taste Breakers, which was like, here's some songs that aren't the kind of thing that you usually listen to, and why not like broaden your horizons a bit, listen to this. And it was like 4 hours long or whatever, and I had to take a really long bus from Sligo to Dublin Airport, so I listened to that playlist on the trip, and this song was on it, and it just kind of, I can't remember the word, it just kind of like captured my attention completely immediately. I mean, it does from the first line, but just the way it goes on and continues, and then I didn't even know the backstory to it, but once I was looking it up, then it's just a really well told song, a really well made song, really musically interesting as well. It is about real life topics that I will have mentioned at the start of the video in the trigger warning, but obviously it's a very heavy topic. I mean, it's about racial violence and murder and prejudice in general, and I mean, that can be a heavy topic to listen to, especially in this day and age. So if you want to skip this one, I'll understand. This song is specifically about the killing of Latasha Harlins by Sun Jadu. She was a 15-year-old girl who was shot by a convenience store owner. I'll go into more detail about it afterwards. I just want you to know that going into it, that this song is from the perspective of a 15-year-old girl who was shot, and it's like kind of her spirit ascending singing the song. So let's go listen to it now and then come back in a few minutes and talk about it. And that was Empire Liquor Mart, 9127 South Figueroa Street by Gabriel Kahane. Now, I was not alive for all of the historical context for this song, so I know about it all through cultural context, reading Wikipedia, seeing things about it. But essentially, the events depicted in this song are the events surrounding the 1992 Los Angeles riots, which I definitely heard about before this song. And I had certainly heard about the police brutality, vicious beating of Rodney King. I didn't know about this killing of Latasha Harlins, though, and as it's told in the song, she was shot by a convenience store owner, and then that person who shot her was sentenced to 10 years in state prison, but the sentence was suspended, and the defendant was instead placed on 5 years probation with 400 hours of community service and payment of $500 restitution and Harlan's funeral cost, which is just wild. 5 years probation, some community service, $500 in the funeral costs for shooting a teenager. Like, it's ridiculous. Similarly, Rodney King was a guy who was pulled over for DUI and then beaten severely by LAPD police officers, but the whole thing was recorded by a guy who saw it nearby from a balcony, and he sent it to a news channel, which is what led it to being such a big story. But then the 4 officers who were tried on the charges of excessive force, 3 of them were acquitted, and the other one, the jury failed to reach a verdict on 1 charge for the 4th. And just a combination of these 2 things happening so close to each other is what happened to the 1992 Los Angeles riots. It's a whole big thing, and it's bigger than I could ever go into, but that is what this song is about. So that gives some context to the lyrics. I mean, you know me, I love long songs. I love songs that go through movements. I love songs that build up, and this song starts with just voice, and Gabriel Kahane has a lovely voice, but it starts off with just the "When the black and whites arrive, I am lifeless on the floor," and then the strings come in, And I love the way that works. I love the way the song, just the orchestration of the song is incredible. There's a great version of this, by the way, where I think it's on Apartment Sessions. I'll definitely link it below as well. It's great. Anyway, let's go through the lyrics. When the black and whites arrive, I am lifeless on the floor, crumpled dollars in my hand, in my hand, in my hand. The lady in the fishing vest has dropped the gun. Who wears a fishing vest when they're working at a liquor store? I float up to the corner, just above the ice cream and the frozen food. I perch beside the surveillance camera. So, when the black and whites arrive, I am lifeless on the floor. One would assume that the black and whites just means like all the other people arriving, and of course specifying their races. Not accidental. I am lifeless on the floor. So she's already dead. Crumpled dollars in my hand. You know, because the whole thing is that she was theoretically shot because the store owner thought she was stealing something, but like she had her money in her hand, showing that she intended to pay for it, right? This is all captured on the CCTV, by the way. This is how we know what happened. The lady in the fishing vest has dropped the gun. Presumably the store owner was wearing a fishing vest for whatever reason. Again, a detail we know because of the CCTV. I haven't watched the video, obviously. I don't know if that's out there. Good Lord. But anyway, who wears a fishing vest when they're working at a liquor store? Just like a stray thought, which is interesting. I float up to the corner just above the ice cream and the frozen food. I perch beside the surveillance camera. So it's like her spirit is watching her own death from the view of the camera. And then it goes, only days after the trial, you could feel the tension rise in the streets and in the rhythm of despair, of despair. It was war after a while in each neighbor's tired eyes. There was nothing to persuade them to stand down, to stand down. I float higher and higher, friendly with the clouds that cover Southland. So, only days after the trial, it leaps forward a bit to the riots, and it's saying only days after the trial, which is to say Rodney King's trial, you could feel the tension rise in the streets. Well, not Rodney King's trial, the trial of the people involved in the beating of Rodney King. You could feel the tension rise in the streets and in the rhythm of despair, of despair. Just this thing of like all these tensions rising as the riots are about to happen. It was war after a while. Yeah. In each neighbor's tired eyes, there was nothing to persuade them to stand down, stand down. I mean, this is like, it was something that was building up for so long, and these two events were just a big catalyst for it. But it's like, yeah, it's hard to give a reason to not do it, right? I'm curious, actually, what does it say? 63 people died in the LA riots. 2,383 were injured. 12,111 were arrested, and it caused roughly $1 billion in damages. That is a lot. Good Lord. Anyway, I float higher and higher, friendly with the clouds that cover Southland. So, you know, her spirit continuing to rise towards heaven up above Southland, right? South Central, Los Angeles. I watch the tender skyline dancing, oh the terror, on the long night, blood glass, burned hair. These angry armies quick advancing in position on the rooftops and the culverts. Stores are sacked while there's no one there. Now two kinds of light from fires and fixtures, they fill the sky. It was never so bright when I was young. I was too young to die. So this is again just talking about like, you know, her spirit rising up and seeing the riot happening. I watched the tender skyline dancing, oh the terror, you know, blood glass, burnt hair, angry armies quick advancing in position, just talking about all these things happening in the riot. Stores are sacked while there's no one there. Now two kinds of light from fires and fixtures, they fill the sky, is a very interesting lyric. It's repeated a few times. You know, it's not just the lights that you see in the sky or in the cityscape, it's also the fires being set. Incidentally, the album this song is on, The Ambassador, the cover is a picture of Gabriel Kahane like gazing out at a cityscape, so presents an interesting image. It was never so bright when I was young, I was too young to die. And that reminds you immediately that we're talking about a 15-year-old girl here. On TV sets and houses, effortlessly done in fancy colors, all the righteous, all the newsmen speak of end times. Why should they give a fuck? Some angry little black girl took a bullet. Lord of mercy on the ones who've done the crime. And then we get the now two kinds of light bit again. So yeah, it's talking about the people on TV and the people watching the TV in their fancy houses, right? All the righteous, all the newsmen speak of end times. It would feel very apocalyptic to be in LA during these riots. I mean, I can't imagine it's dissimilar to the massive fires that have been happening, particularly just a few months ago. There was those massive, they're still happening, aren't they? I think so. Haven't heard about it in a while because that's how the news cycle fucking works when you're not in the country, and even when you're in the country. Anyway, but the next bit is so telling. Why should they give a fuck? Some angry little black girl took a bullet. Just completely perfectly describing the attitude at the time of like, well, she was just like an angry little black girl, so who cares if she got shot? That happens all the time. It's just sickening. The Lord of mercy, and the ones who've done the crime, presumably is referring to the light sentences they got, or the lack of sentences, but it also makes me think of the theoretically Jesus Christ's last words, forgive them, Lord, they know not what they do. So there's that. If I float even higher, pattern and procession are uncovered, flood and fire, flood and earthquake keep folks unmoored, and the occasional celebrity car chase, woo, 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 just to keep God from getting bored. And then you get the now two kinds of light bit again. So she's talking about floating even higher, seeing everything going on. Pattern and procession are uncovered. So she's seeing like the history of it and how it's just endless cycles of racism and violence, flood and fire, flood and earthquake, keep folks unmoored. Makes me think of just like biblical events, and the occasional celebrity car chase just to keep God from getting bored. Very much feels like it's just kind of like poking fun, although it also makes me think of O.J. Simpson actually. But just kind of like saying how this celebrity car chases don't fucking matter in the grand scheme of things, but it's just saying that like, it's something that people pay attention to, unlike the racial tensions in the country. I feel as though what it's saying. And the woo, 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 I assume it's supposed to be the sirens. And then it quiets down, we get an acoustic guitar bit. When my grandma was a young woman, East St. Louis, she thought the town was no good to us. She took a greyhound just as far as I could take her, felt her maker in the waves, how God moves through us. I was 6 years old when we followed. My mother was 22. The light was magic, the light was true. She thought we'd moved beyond a sharecropper's debt, but we were just a pawn in the accuser's bed. Nobody reads from the book of Job at the church where me and my grandma go. Nobody sees the trouble I know, but I know the trouble's gonna find me. So she starts talking about her family history now. Her grandmother in East St. Louis, she thought the town was no good to us. She took a greyhound just as far as I could take her, felt her maker in the waves, God moves through us. So it's talking about, her grandmother, she felt the town was no good to us, like she felt the tension against black people, right? I was 6 years old when we followed. My mother was 22. The light was magic, the light was true. Just trying to move to better situations, but there always being something bad there. And then the nobody reads in the book of Job bit. I didn't quite understand this because I don't know my Bible very well. I know some of it. Obviously, I just quoted the Jesus thing. But the book of Job has this big kind of central question of why do bad things happen to good people? And the implication here is that no one reads from that book because they know why bad things happen to good people, or they know that bad things happen to good people because it's, this black church. They're aware that bad things happen to good people all the time, which is a sad thought. Then we get 3 years later on a Thanksgiving, the light turned bitter. My grandmother didn't know what hit her. We got a chill from the cold white sun. Mama found herself staring at the barrel of a gun. That weren't enough. My uncle died too, shot through the chest back in East St. Louis. So one fine day, my grandma lost two, took me in her arms and said, "It's just me and you." And then we get the nobody reads in the book of Job bit again. So this is true. Latasha Harlan's mother, Crystal Harlan's, was found shot to death on November 27th, 1985 at a club in Los Angeles. Her uncle apparently also shot through the chest, and so she was just with her grandmother there with no one else. And then we get the final bit. So when I say that my untimely death was something certain, what I mean is that these tragedies are a kind of family tradition. So when I walk into the liquor store that morning bright and angry in a daydream of a boyfriend I was 15, pick up a bottle of orange juice and put it into my backpack, head toward the counter with dollar bills, and she accused me of stealing that. She pulled my sweater and so I hit her, put down the bottle, don't want no trouble. Now two kinds of light from fires and fixtures, they fill the sky. It was never so bright when I was young. I was too young to die. Repeats that again, and then it ends with, I suppose it's no surprise to find myself about to die, but how long that silver moment from the bullet to the floor, that right there was a lifetime. La, da, 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 da. Good Lord. So yeah, this whole idea that her untimely death was something certain because these tragedies are a kind of family tradition. Again, just such a sad idea that like she was destined to die because tragedy follows her family. And I think that's speaking to the overall how like this wasn't an isolated event. Neither was Rodney King, neither were the riots. This was like years of decades, centuries of racial tension, right? And she's kind of saying how these tragedies are a family tradition in the same way that her getting shot to death was a tragedy in a long list of tragedies for black people, right? So when I walked into the liquor store that morning bright and angry in a daydream of a boyfriend, I was 15. She mentions just like, being young and like just thinking about like her boyfriend or like fantasizing about the idea of a boyfriend because she was 15. And so she picks up a bottle of orange juice, she puts it into her backpack and she goes towards the counter to buy it, but she's accused of stealing it because she put it in her backpack and then, put down the bottle, don't want no trouble, and then it goes down to the now two kinds of light. You can assume that's when the gunshot happens, right? And then I suppose it's no surprise to find myself about to die, but how long the silver moment from the bullet to the floor kind of brings you back around in the loop of like this song being kind of what she sees in that moment, and then that right there was a lifetime. Yeah, this whole song is that lifetime, right? La da 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 da. Such a sad story, and especially when you view it from a modern context, race relations in America are still not great, and it's it's interesting to talk about these things now, because this song, the event is from 91, right? Because then the riots were 92. Yeah, the event was in 91, the riots were in 92, and this song came out in 2014, and I'm talking about it in 2025, and each gap, this song is still relevant, the story is still relevant. We have to, those who do not learn from the mistakes of history are doomed to repeat it. I'm misquoting that, but you know what I mean. It is important that we think about these things when we think about how we intend to continue as a society, and, particularly American society is in a big backslide right now, and I don't have a cohesive point here to make, but I think you know what I mean. Anyway, this is going to be a long ass episode, but it's an important one. That is going to be the end of this week of podcasting. Tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day, so next week is Irish themed. I'm going to be only doing songs by Irish artists. I've done a few Irish artists before. I just wanted to specifically do Irish artists this week because of course. So look forward to that. Until then, thank you so much for listening. Please hit like, hit subscribe, leave a comment down below, tell me what you think, tell other people about this show. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you tomorrow.
Break it down.